Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be doing my first ever story time because a few people have asked me to do this. This story is about something that happened to me. It's not very recent, but it's still a very prominent factor in my life. Yeah, it is a bit of a funny story. It is quite serious, so I mean, feel free to laugh with me. And I appreciate you guys so much for coming back onto my channel to support me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below what you would like to see in the future. Grab your popcorn, grab your tea, grab your water, and let's get started. This story happened not so recently, but I still remember it very well just because of how unbelievable it was. As you can see by the caption, this didn't have to be so dramatic, but that's how it kind of worked out. So I was chilling at home. My family was away for that day, so it was just me and my helper. I'm chilling at home, watching TV. It's about like 9:30, you know. So Kiduti, I'm watching TV and I'm on my phone like interchangeably. So I'm watching TV on my phone, watching TV on my phone, and guys, so I don't know what it was, but you know when you can feel that thing that someone is watching you. So I'm like, okay, like tense, but I can feel that someone's watching me. So I turned around and there's these two guys just standing there. So one of them guys, so one of them is just wearing a cap, the other one is wearing a balaclava, but he made it gastofi. So you know when you you know when your stockings tear and they have those ladders. So this guy's balaclava, I could see that, okay, this guy's not serious because the balaclava has the whole of his eyes, so he can obviously see, is from the ladder of the stocking. So the stofi has obviously like ripped. So now that hole is where he's looking from, and I'm like, this guy can't be serious. So I turn around, I look at them, and the one guy's like to me, shh. Yo guys, it was so scary, I nearly like shat myself. So I just look at them, he goes shh, and I start screaming like going crazy. I'm like, ah! Guys, when I say I've never screamed like that in my life, yo, I screamed. So I'm screaming. He's like, shut up. He's like, shut up. So I'm like, yo, there's two of them. So the one is like the boss, and then the other one is like the little minion kind of thing. So the boss says to the other guy, I'm just gonna call him X. So the boss says, X, go check in the house who's there. Then the boss comes to me and he says, so I'm like, it's just me and my helper. He's like, don't lie to me. I'm like, yeah, sorry guys, my Zulu is very bad. But he's like, nyakjela. I mean, so I'm like, nyakjela, you know, Antwerp, sharp. Then he's like, where is she? I'm like, downstairs. He says, okay, cool. He tells the other guy to go look for her. This guy comes back raging like, where are all the other people? I'm like, dude, my helper is downstairs. It's not my problem that you can't find her. Then he looks in all the houses, he says, so here I am mentioning every nigger in my life that I know. I'm like, my uncle, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my other uncle, my dad, my brother, my... Yo, guys. So I'm mentioning all these people. He's like, oh, okay. Something. So he sits down. I was really calm during this whole situation because I felt like something honestly in me, Mudimu, my ancestors, thank you. Something was just like, dude, relax, calm down. So he comes and he blocks my mouth. So he comes from behind me, he blocks my mouth, and I start screaming again. So he's like, shut up, just shut up, shut up, shut up. I'm not shutting up. Here I am going, screaming. He's like, shut up. He's like, he's like, meeting each other something. So I'm like, yo, thank you, Jesus. He sits down, he's like, we don't rob black people, we just want white people and we want money. We don't care about anything else. All we care about is money and jewelry, so show me where the money's at. I'm like, my nigga, there's no money. So he goes into my room, well, yeah, into my room. He finds a watch by the windowsill and there's this other little beginning watch, and he's like, whose watch is this? I'm like, it's mine. He's like, oh, is this all you have to offer me? I'm like, but like, what do you want me to do? So the minion goes downstairs and he comes back with a watch. And this was my mom's watch. And he says to me, "Egaba watch. Le watch. Egaba le watch." And I'm like, I hadn't even seen him. I was like, he's like, I'm like, so I'm trying to, you know, and he says to me, oh, okay, it's in one. He puts it on his hand, it doesn't fit. So he says, oh, Baba kupe minya opene, that's why they're watching on Guys, you know when you are stuck between a rock and a hard place and you just need to laugh. I literally giggled. I mean, but just because the watch doesn't fit you, my brother. Now it's getting tense. This guy sits on the table, on my mother's dining room table. He sits down, he lights a cigarette. And I'm just like... So this guy sits down with his cigarette in front of me. He starts asking me questions, like personal questions. What's your name? Where were you born? What do you do? Whatever, whatever. Then he says to me, Yasmina, I'm like, what? What made you think that? He's like, no, we just thought this is a white person's house and you are black, so you're the helper. I'm like, oh, okay. I should have just stuck with that, but okay. Cool. Then he's like, oh, let's clear son. I'm like, it's for the car downstairs, but please. So now I'm pleading. I'm like, please don't, please, like, blah blah. You know, the typical take whatever you want. And I was like, but please don't take the car, because that's honestly all I cared about at that point. And then he says to me, okay, so what do you do? I'm like, I'm studying law. Then he's like, oh, okay. Gushoguti. So he sits down, this is when he sits down. He's like, I'm like, okay. Bear in mind that you're in my house, you're robbing me. And he says, okay, so I'm like, he's like, one, you'll be entering my home, you want to be doing naughty things in my home. Now you want me to be your lawyer, huh? So I'm like, okay, obviously in the time, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So he's like, oh, okay, you're a lawyer. I'm like, he says to me on the remote, which of these is a panic button? So I say, none of them are a panic button. He says, don't lie to me, which one of them are a panic button? I'm like, none of them are the panic button. So he says to me, okay, so what's gonna happen is now we're gonna take the car that's down. Guys, now I'm like, we're gonna take the car that's downstairs, we're gonna go to Alex, we're gonna send you because he's like, because we need to get home. I'm like, nigga. He says we need to get home. So I'm gonna send you a message of where you can fetch your car, at what time. Your car will be perfectly fine, we just need to get home because we're not finna rob you. Also, like, I could see that, I mean, I can't really say this because I'm not an expert in like criminology and crimes and stuff, but like, I don't really think they had the intention of a huge robbery. I sound very naive, but I mean, they just came there bare, no school bag, no squama, no nothing. Like, whatever they were going to take had to fit in their pockets, or they would have to be able to carry, which, I mean, there's only so much you can carry as a human being, but yeah, you never know in these streets. So he says, this is where you're gonna find your car. So I'm like, okay, sharp. He says, go Alex, go what. So luckily, I mean, I can kind of navigate my way around Alex, like I know where things are. So I was like, okay, cool. He's like, who you gonna come with? I'm like, alone. He's like, you're lying. Yes, Masa. So he's like, Suguma. So I get up. Then I was like, you know what? Let me just try myself out one more time. So, so I get up and I go off like, ah! I'm screaming again. I start screaming. He's like, yeah. So he says to me, yes, Suguma. So I'm like, what's going on now? Like, so I'm like, okay. In my head, I'm like, you know what, Valerie, just relax. Calm down, like, try yourself out one more time. So I start screaming again. I'm going off like, ah, screaming. I'm thinking maybe my helper can hear me, but I mean, Dololo, guys, my neighbors, nothing. So I'm screaming. He's like, just cooperate and this will be over. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, put me English. So then he says, cool. Then he says, I'm like, Siya. He's like, Siya, now I'm shitting myself. I'm like, oh my God, you're gonna take me out of my home. You invade my home, then you wanna take me out of it. He says, so then I'm like, okay. So he comes with me to my room to put on a jersey. He's like, so I'm like, yo, because I just took like a little sweat. He's like, so now I'm taking a jacket. He's like, okay, I'm like, everything's fine. We get in the car. He's like, Tati front seat. Oh, it's in Tati. Yo, guys, this terminology, Tati left or something. So my body was just like, okay, I assume he's saying I'll go to the front seat. I sit. Then the minion comes after this whole time being of him not being here. He comes back with 2 pairs of all-stars that I know for a fact will not fit him. Like, one was a size 4, one was a size 6 or something. And I'm just looking at him like, he's like, yeah, you know, totally medium. I'm like, okay. I was just sitting there like I was so numb, but I was just in disbelief that this was happening. Then he comes back with a hat. You know those straw hats that you wear like on a mega holiday? He comes back. By the way, the boss is next to me. I'm in the front seat. This guy's outside the car in the garage at my house. He comes back. He's like, "Yang fanela lento lene." So I keep quiet. I mean, I'm not trying to have like insane dialogue with you. He's like, "It's yang fanela lento lene," and I'm like, Now we're getting out. We're driving, and then he drives out. He says, "Which one is the panic button?" I'm like, "It's not there." He's like, "Which one is the garage remote?" So I show him. He opens the garage opens. I was really cooperating because I knew that anything could happen to me at any point. So I was just trying to like... And then we see this police, we stop at the robot. So we're on this lane, the police van is in this lane. When I say this is the craziest thing that's ever happened to me, guys. So I look over, his window's open, the music is blasting loud. You know when you hold the steering wheel like a kinza, like a real... His arm is out, like he's holding it like this, and I'm there like just this fragile little girl. I mean, I'm not little, I'm quite old. I'm not old, but I'm just there like, and I thought about screaming and asking for help from the police, but then I realized that there's this guy behind me, there's one right next to me. They could easily get away and then that's over for me. So I decided, okay, let me just cooperate until the end of this thing and see where we go. Then the police, so the robot goes green, the police drive off. He hoots at them and he goes, "Yeah, Anuyas and Sevens win." Guys. He says Anuyas and Sevens win to the police because they're gone now. So now he's driving, we're driving. We get to Alex. So I know Alex not very well, but I know Alex well, so I would be able to essentially, if I was lost, navigate around it. So what I was doing is the first thing I thought of when we got into Alex is Taken, the movie. I don't know if you guys know, but there's this part where he's like 1, 2, 3, left. Then the car turns left and he's like 5, 4, 3, right, left. You know, like one of those like. We are driving, then it's 11:30 now. And we've been driving around Alex for an hour. I don't know. So he takes out, he has 2 phones obviously. So he takes out the burner phone. He calls someone to come pick him up. And then they're like, okay, cool, we're on the way. Sharp. So the whole duration, we're driving around Alex until these people that have come to pick him up arrive. So we're driving. We park on the pavement of a house. And we're sitting there and this huge car drives past. He looks out the window. He like looks at the car while it drives past, then he makes a phone call like corner this. He gives the registration of the number, he hangs up, he looks at me and he laughs. I'm like, guys, this is not working, like we're just sitting here. Then me and this guy start talking and we're talking about just general like life, blah 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 blah. And then I don't know what happened. Oh! I left out a part. So he says to me, "Give me your number so I can call you." So I'm like, shit. My phone is off, so if I give him my real number, that's fine. Nope. He says, like the phone, yeah. So I switched my phone. I don't know. He says, like, put your phone on. So I put my phone on. Then he says, give me your number. So I had to give him the real number because now he's got my phone to see if it'll ring. He's like, okay, your name. So I gave him my pseudonym. And then he calls, he's like, okay, I'm gonna call you. So I'm like, sharp. So him and I start talking, and I don't know what happened, but he really started to open up to me. Like, he's telling me his life, what happened to his family, what happened to like all the things. I mean, he could have been easily lying, but it seemed so genuine. And for a second, like, I forgot that he was like this guy that had essentially robbed me and kidnapped me from my home. And he was just like being honest and saying, I mean, I wouldn't say honest, but he was just telling me why he does what he does and all these things. And I kind of felt bad for him. But at the same time, I was really grateful that nothing had happened to me. So I was like, yeah, I hear you, I feel you, all these things. And then I think it clicked that what he was doing is not part of the agenda. So he's like, yeah, shut up, who's lip? So I'm like, dude, I didn't ask you anything. You're the one telling me all these things. And then he slipped up and told me his real name. And then, because the whole time they were calling each other by code. And then he slipped up and I was like, So all of a sudden, Uputi says he's hungry, guys. So I'm like, take me home, or just let me go home. You can go eat. Let's go our separate ways, all as well. He says, I'm like, no, let's cut. It's 11:30. Where are we going to eat? I'm also not trying to have dinner with you, brother. Like, I want to go home. I'm exhausted. I'm terrified. Can I go home? So we go there, he buys me a pot. He's like, ufune ipikot. So I'm like, I'm not hungry. He says, okay, last number. He's like, an extra cheese, no cheese game. So he buys the pot, he buys me 2 slices of cheese. And he gets the call that they're there to pick him up. So I'm like, oh, he's like, okay, in Lana, wherever they come. Then he's like, okay, also drive. So I get out of the passenger seat, I come to the front seat. It's 11:30. He's like, okay, don't forget our deal. So I'm like, okay, the deal is not to open a case, blah, 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 blah. Shut. So I get in the car, he's like, start the car. I'm like, nigga, I definitely know how to drive. I didn't say that, but anyway. So I start the car, he's like, fully wind. So I lock the door, I open the window. He's like, okay, I like the phone. Okay. So I switch my phone on. And then he says, do you know how to get out of here? So I'm like, yes, I knew where we were. So I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. He's like, okay, he's like, phone in again. So I'm like, shut. He looks at me and then he's like, Nyaktand. Yo, guys, when I say my soul just shattered. So the moment I get in the house, my phone starts ringing. I'm like, hello? He's like, Ufigileli. So I literally wanted to die. So I'm like, yeah, he's like, okay, I'm like, I want to hang up. Then he says, okay, I hang up, I block that number, I report the number, yonkinto, like I go off. And yeah, that's my story, guys. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of the video and what you would like to see in the future. Please share this link with all your friends. Turn on the notifications bell, and I will see you guys in my next video.